The arrests in Bengaluru riots are being made and they're being made fast. The police has filed two separate FIRs. 19 people have been named. Now, these 19 people are in addition to the arsonists, the rioters, which has already been arrested, and there are more than 100 of them already. But these 19 people, turns out most of them are members of the PFI and its political front, the SDPI, the Popular Front of India, PFI, the Social Democratic Party of India, SDPI. Now, of course, the Karnataka state government is calling to ban the PFI and SDPI. There have already been calls by the Uttar Pradesh state government to ban it around the CA riots. There's already been call by the central government also to ban. But every time there is a call to ban, there's somehow some bureaucratic hurdle, some political hurdle, and it's forgotten. Today, we are going to take up this discussion and we're going to look at two aspects. One, the idea of PFI and SDPI, and two, the violence they have been involved in over the years. But before I begin, before I go into that story, there is one story from 2016 I must discuss with you. That of NIA and the case they were tracking in Kannur, Kerala. What happened? NIA, the National Investigation Agency, they were conducting a raid around Kannur, Kerala, and they found that a group of youngsters motivated by the Islamic State, if you remember it from Iraq and Syria, motivated by the Islamic State, had formed a group called Al Zarul Khalifa to wage a war with the country, which is India, and to create trouble between different communities. Now, the police, of course, arrested, the NIA arrested these members. Interestingly, most of the members here were members of PFI already. A week later, around the same region, 22 people disappeared, including women and children. And there were reports that they had gone to Afghanistan to join the Islamic State. So, this is the kind of history PFI comes with in 2016. And the NIA, the module they busted, was actually the first module of the Islamic State in Kerala. Now, this is one story we need to keep in mind before we move on with the video. Now, what is really the PFI or what is really the STPI? Now, the PFI was set up in 2006 as a federation of the National Development Fund, which was set up in Kerala in 1993. It has further two organizations, the MNP in Tamil Nadu and the Karnataka Forum for Dignity in Karnataka. Now, what do they call themselves? They call themselves a cadre-based movement. It's a socio-political movement that strives for the interests of the marginalized sections of the society, as I like to call it. These include your Muslims, these include your Dalits, these include your other backward classes and other minorities. Now, coming to that Dalit Muslim angle, if you haven't watched already, I'll put a link in the description, a video about the sham that Dalit Muslim unity is, the same kind of sham that organizations like PFI like to advocate. Do watch that video where we've discussed why the idea of Dalit Muslim unity doesn't work. So, talking of PFI further, now very recently the NPR NRC debate was raging. In December 2019, the PFI came out with a statement which said that the endeavor of the NPR does not pertain to the usual census pursued as the Census Act of 1948, and therefore all these agendas, all these steps point towards the sinister agenda behind the preparation of NPR, a dubious way to introduce the NRC. This was PFI stand on NPR and NRC. So no points guessing what they thought of the CA as well. Now, they have been involved in a lot of multiple violence and extremist incidents. We'll come to that later. But a note about the SDPI too. SDPI, which is known as the political front of PFI, it was formed in 2010. It was formed in 2009 and it was registered with the Election Commission in 2010. Again, it identifies itself as a cadre-based movement. It works for the marginalized sections of the society, and the same old story. Now, one would say that the PFI and SDPI, these are two innocent organizations working for the marginalized sections of the society. At least that's what the narrative would be made to sound like. But how much of it is true? That's the question. Let's look at some of the violent incidents they have been involved in. The first one is the connection to SIMI, which is also the Student Islamic Movement of India. Now, this was a dreaded terror organization which was banned. In 2010, the PFI was alleged to have links with the banned Islamic terrorist organization. The PFI's national chairman, Abdul Rahman, was former national secretary of SIMI. The organization's state secretary, Abdul Hamid, was former state secretary for SIMI. And most former leaders of Simi had somehow found a place in the PFI. This was the first problem. This was pointed out in 2010. In April 2013, the Kerala police raided a training camp, again around Kannur in Kerala, and arrested 21 activists of the Popular Front of India. They were making country made bombs. They were sword raw materials for making bombs, and other provocative pamphlets that were discovered. This was 2013. In June 2011, the PFI was also involved in kidnapping of two boys, and they asked for a ransom of 5 crore rupees. The boys were kidnapped from the Mahajan College premises in Mysore, and the murder was conducted. The murder of the two boys who were kidnapped was done by the Karnataka Forum of Dignity, which sought a ransom of 5 crore rupees. Interestingly, in 2006, the Karnataka Forum for Dignity had merged with the PFI. So this was an instance of kidnapping where PFI name came forward. There were also cases that they have been involved in, the number of cases they have been involved in, and the Kerala government took this up with the Kerala High Court. In 2012, the PFI had an active involvement in 27 murder cases in Kerala alone, and most of these murders were of CPIM, cadres, or RSS, which we often hear about, but the mainstream media really doesn't like to talk about. In 2014, the Kerala government again submitted before the Kerala High Court saying that the activists of NDF, which is where the PFI originated from, they were involved in 27 communally motivated cases, 86 attempt to murder cases, 106 communal cases, and this is just in Kerala. Talking of the political rivalries, in July 2012, N. Sachin Gopal, a student of modern ITC, Kannur, and a district leader of Akhil Bharatiya Vidya Parishad, he was allegedly stabbed by members of the Popular Front of India. Again, this was another instance of PFI's violence. And the most gruesome incident of the PFI violence was in 2012, after the Assam riots. An SMS campaign began and 60 million messages were sent on the same day on August 13, 2012. What were these messages? The messages that were circulating, and they were traced back to the members of the PFI. They said that we will go for retribution against people of the Northeast, and we will do that after the holy festival of Ramzan. So what led to it? People were scared, people fled Chennai, people fled various parts of South India, especially Chennai and other cities in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, scared. Thousands of people fled. And when the messages were traced back, 30% of those messages were traced back to Pakistan. And Popular Front of India was involved here as well. Now, coming to the most recent protest, the CAA. The Deputy Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, he made a comment that they wanted the PFI to be banned because they had seen the involvement of PFI with Simi in instigating the riots and provocating the people to go for violence, even the riots that occurred. So it boils down to one simple question. We have these repeated instances of violence by the PFI, by the SDPI. So why don't we see any action? Already 3 states have called to ban them in a span of less than 1 year, the Kerala, UP, and now Karnataka. So why doesn't the central government act? Well, a lot of claims can be made that there are political issues to it, that there is certain deadlock between the political parties when it comes to decision on banning PFI or SDPI. But I think it's time that organizations like PFI and SDPI, which pose a real threat and a real internal security threat to the sanctity of India's democracy, they must be banned. And one can hope that after the Bengaluru riots, both the state and the central government have learned their lesson, and the PFI and SDPI will be banned. Thank you.